Welcome to our first episode of Under the Hood with HubSpot. Welcome along. First of many episodes that we're going to be running through, unpacking the features, if you like, of this wonderful platform growth suite. We're going to be looking at the Marketing Hub over coming weeks, the Sales Hub, and also Service Hub. If you're new to HubSpot and considering HubSpot, then this would be great for you. If you're already on HubSpot, and hopefully you'll get stuff out of this as well, because there'll be features on here that maybe you've actually got that you don't know you've got, and you'll be able to utilize them. But first, we're just going to go through a little bit about who is going to be featured here. My name's Tony Eads. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Sorted Stone. To my right
is me, Gabe McCarthy. I'm the strategist here for APAC and also self-professed HubSpot fanatic and expert.
You're going to say guru then or something?
No.
We're waiting to see how
it's not culturally appropriate anymore.
We'll also have various other speakers, presenters over the coming weeks. So one of those is, of course, the amazing Michael Peach. He heads up our solutions team in our Perth office at Sorted Stone. We'll also have some folks from HubSpot also joining us from time to time for those more sticky features, I suppose, where we need to dive just that little bit deeper. First, if you were around for Inbound, if you're in Australia like us, that was in the middle of the night for us, so you probably missed a bit of it. So I thought I might start off before we get into the features thing and share with you a couple of the things that we found out, that we saw, that sort of came out of Inbound this year. One of the keynotes, spotlight I think it was, on the first day was around that the average company has something like 242 SaaS apps, which was quite surprising. You were surprised by that stat.
I was.
Yeah. And you questioned it.
I didn't think it was real.
So 242, it just means that things are not as connected as they could be. There's an app for everything nowadays, and I think people just get into this ability of downloading an app because they think it's cool, someone else is using it, someone tells you about it, so then you start downloading it. We then went into kind of the area of how things have sort of changed in terms of how we connect with customers. Of course, HubSpot works on the inbound methodology across the whole thing, which you're probably familiar with, which is like the awareness, the engagement or consideration, decision, and then obviously the delight stage. And I pulled up a couple of slides here that engage nowadays has changed in terms of how we need to now more earn that open rate. So, if we want people to click on our content, we've got to make that content so engaging and make it worthwhile for people to click through. So the generalized content that we've had before, the 10 top things you can do about this, or the 20 best things of this, probably aren't going to cut it as something that could be more interesting. So how well are you earning that open rate? And then bringing context to the conversation. So really understanding where people are coming to you from. They can connect with you on various different ways now, from chat through to message, through to email, through to whatever. But what is the context behind their inquiry? So these things are important for us to engage better than we have before. And then the focus is on delight. And so much in the past, people have forgotten about delight. Once you've sold to a customer, the job's over. But we all know that's really where the journey begins. So making buying a breeze. How easy is it for people to purchase from you? HubSpot, of course, has now payments that's connected, not so much in Australia yet, but coming very, very soon, to just make that whole process streamlined. So once they find a product they want to engage with you, making it easy for them to buy from you is also important. And then giving customers more choice. Like, people want choice. They want to be able to make the decisions themselves. We've heard about the buyer journey, that people self-navigate and go through that journey at their own time, in their own direction. But how do you give customers more choice nowadays? Because if you're not giving them choice, your competitors probably are. The customer journey is always an important part. We spend a lot of time doing workshops on building out people's customer journeys. But customer journey analytics is a new addition to HubSpot. We might be covering that in weeks coming up. So you'll be able to not only plan and build your customer journey, but also then look at the analytics across the whole journey, which means that you can look at like an active funnel, if you like, of where people are at different stages of the journey. Marketing campaigns, we're going to touch a bit of that today because our subject is going to be around campaigns, which is built within HubSpot. But marketing campaigns had a few new additions. As you can see here, the dashboard is a lot more exciting now. There's things where you can add your goals into your marketing campaigns. You can then track what's actually happening in the campaign in live data, live format, to see how successful your campaigns are, how many new contacts you've got, how many new sessions you've created. Then, of course, it's all about community. And this was Dharmesh's kind of pitch to everybody that, community now is the ideal community is around these elements of identity, diversity, engagement, action, and then learning. And all of these are kind of put together in this kind of professional community environment, which HubSpot spent a fair bit on creating this new thing called HubSpot Connect. And the idea is we've already had things like the academy that folks have used to learn the products and to learn the methodologies around inbound. But now the whole thing is coming together in this new thing called HubSpot Connect. So globally, not only can partners and customers connect, but each other connect and learn from one another. So the evolution of value-led growth also came through, and again, Dharmesh shared this, that we used to come from a platform or a process, if you like, called sales-led growth, where it's all about the salesperson. The salesperson added a consultation, did the deal, and away you moved. Then we moved on to the next stage, which was driven by content, which was marketing-led growth. So the content drove us forward in terms of our value growth. Then we had product-led growth, which is where code came in. And now we're into this next stage, which is community-led growth. And this is where connection becomes important, and where this whole area of HubSpot Connect is going to play a big role. We'll talk about that more as we go on. When it all comes together in this kind of ecosystem that HubSpot kind of portrays, you've got the connected applications, of which we're going to cover off in a lot of these episodes, is exactly what is Marketing Hub? What are the features of Marketing Hub, both at pro level and enterprise level? Sales Hub, Service Hub, CMS Hub for hosting your website, and Operations Hub are all the hubs that come together in what HubSpot called the Growth Suite. And then you've got this connected platform, which is coming into play now, where all your data, your automation, your reporting, your content is all kind of housed in this kind of middle layer, if you like a cake almost. I suppose it's the juicy bit of the cake. And then the foundation at the bottom is what's going to drive everything and build everything, which is your network, the marketplace, this connected community. Because the feeling that was out of inbound was that we live in a disconnected world. Not only those apps that I shared with you before are disconnected, but us as people are disconnected. We're working virtually, hybridly. We're actually in the office today presenting to you, but you could be anywhere in the world and not necessarily feeling as connected as you could be. So connection is really what it was all about for HubSpot. But time to get under the hood, and we're going to get under the hood this week with Gabe, and we're going to be talking about campaign tools, which is an interesting one that you may or may not be familiar with.
Yes, and thanks, Tony, for that. Just off the back of what you said before I get into those tools, I think you raised some really good points that came out of inbound, especially around things that Brian Halligan, Dharmesh, even Barack Obama, if you watch that was a particularly good one. When you touched upon the term disconnected, I think that is one of the key things that came out as a necessity to fill in a gap for within HubSpot technology in itself. The biggest key thing when it comes to campaigns and the campaign tools and making those campaign activity tools connect now is the ability now to listen more to your audiences, listening more, and then being able to execute on said listening with a much more narrow and bespoke approach, as it used to be, where we were kind of guessing what our audiences wanted and whatnot. So the campaign tools I'm hoping now that HubSpot are rolling out, seems like the direction they're going is to be able to build that community where people can listen and share ideas and then grow from there as a result, because HubSpot's all about growth. It's a growth suite platform, right?
And I think that also leads it to data, right? Because if we're listening, we're also looking at the data that comes in, because we can make so much better decisions on campaigns or anything you're doing if you can look at real-time, real-life data.
Yeah, not even just your regular Google Analytics, but data that actually means something to you and speaks to you. And this is what leads in perfectly into talking about campaign tools. Now, before I screen share and show you a little bit about where campaigns sit in HubSpot and how you can use them, and I'll take you through all of that, all the fun stuff and the tools and toys, but just to cover a little bit about what campaign tools are. So think of it, I think a lot of people undervalue, or maybe not undervalue, but underuse campaign tools a fair bit because they don't really see the end goal in mind as much. Campaign tools, pick a scenario where, say you're running a campaign. That's a good example there of using campaign tools, but you're running a campaign, and what do you do to develop said campaign, right? You have marketing efforts that consist of, putting in Google ads or LinkedIn ads or whatever ads you're promoting. And then within those set ads, you're promoting a landing page where content sits and we want people to download and interact with, whatever it might be. All those efforts that you do with those set assets eventually then lead into your sales pipeline, hopefully, because then you're wanting to, get new leads from there and nurture them and then create them as customers. So the ultimate goal of what campaign tools do is to be able to measure that asset success. And then once it enters in your HubSpot pipeline, be able to show ROI, which is a huge thing. So you can see the whole journey based upon people's touch points. So you can see the moment someone becomes a customer, you can look back and go, oh, they interacted with this ad, and then this blog, and then this landing page, and they filled in this form. So then you can start to see where all the dots start to join, and then understand fully like what your overall investment in certain bits of marketing tools and assets you should be putting more into. So with that said, I'll just share my screen here and go into the actual tools themselves, because that's what we're all here to do. It's the fun bit. And pardon me while I look down at my screen as opposed to the camera to look at what I'm doing. But essentially, I'll take you through a real quick tutorial of where campaign tools sit, and then how you go about using them. And this will be like a little crash course. So here is your usual HubSpot portal. This is the Salted Stone one. And if we have a look here, you'll see marketing at the very top. It sits under marketing because it all leads from marketing into sales tools and whatnot. Go down on marketing and click on campaigns. So that's pretty straightforward already. All very well, nice labeled and named. So you can see here is your main campaign hub. In your main campaign hub, you've got these main tabs at the top where you manage all your campaigns and develop them and edit them and whatnot. So they all sit here underneath your campaign names. Then you've got the campaign calendar. So then you can actually start mapping out, when your campaign starts and ends, what certain assets and stuff sit on certain dates of your calendar, etc. And then one tool that really gets underused a lot is your task tool, which is really handy, especially if you are, say, the marketing manager or the sales manager or both, and you're wanting to check on your campaign success, come back to it and be notified of when you should be doing that. So it's kept, within your peripheral, and you're never losing sight of when you should be checking, your campaign success. And tasks is one thing that gets really underused a lot in this sense. So it is there, and it is quite powerful to use, and I think more people should use it. But anyway, looking at the actual use of campaigns and managing those, I'm going to take you through how you go about setting up one to begin with, and then how you can go about adding in assets. And then from there, I'll show you some example ones that we've got developed and show you sort of how those results play out. Because obviously if we set one up now, we're not running a campaign right now on this setup, so you won't be able to see results. So I'll show you an example of one in a bit. So you'll see here at the top, you've got create a campaign or compare campaigns. We're not going to look at compare campaigns today because there's no need to. We're actually going to look at creating one. Now, HubSpot does this great thing, and it's introduced this quite recently, of either being able to start a campaign from scratch or to use one of their templates to work off. And if you click the template one, you can see here, what is your overall goal of your campaign? To generate leads or to promote an online event? They'll add more over time. This is just the beta, but essentially you could pick this, and then it would give you options from HubSpot perspective about how you could set up your campaign. But for now, we're going to look at the more bespoke approach, which is starting from scratch. So I'm going to click cut start from scratch. Now, it won't even take you away from the screen, which is what a great feature of HubSpot I like, is like it keeps everything quite centralized and neat so you don't get lost. Set up a campaign name. At the moment, we're just going to call this maybe Under the Hood, and I'll put test so no one gets confused. But as you can see there, it'll let you know what symbols and stuff you can't use in your campaign. So I'm going to remove the brackets. I did that for a test. I knew that. I swear. And then we're going to go under here and look at the campaign owner. Now, this is great as you, again, as the campaign manager, you might be the marketing manager or salesperson, whatever. You can set it to yourself. So I'm going to set it to myself. Great. And then you can see from an organization point of view, who's responsible for what. So I'm responsible for this campaign. I believe we're going to start from today because that's when under the hood, the inaugural episode has started. So hence we're going to start it from today. And we're going to go, let's go for a whole year. Let's go to September 21, there we go, of 2023. I'm sure that will come very quickly. You can even use campaign colors and whatnot to distinguish between different campaigns if you just want it at a quick glance. I'll pick blue, that's my favorite color. Goal, so you can put in here, and it gives you options there. It says add a goal that summarizes what you want to achieve within your said campaign. So you could be, say, like, I don't know, 26 new leads, as an example there. Audiences, again, it gives you options there. It says add an audience campaign that can help your team understand what it's targeting. So in this case, we'll say marketing managers. That's just an example. And currency is a new addition. So, we operate at Soulstone globally. So, we have both the Australian dollar, US dollar, and I think the pound, is it we're using? The Great British Pound?
Yes.
Yes.
I think, yeah. Euro.
Or the euro, I don't know, one of those. But either case, we'll pick AUD because that's where we're doing this from. And we'll go at the budget. So let's say, for example, we've got 20 grand. That'd be great as a budget for this for this campaign of Under the Hood. And then any notes. It's like, Tony is the MVP for this event. Gabe supporting, etc. Something like that. Once you're done with that, you've got your framework ready to go. Just go hit create. And there you go. It starts to give you your campaign dashboard, which then you can start adding in your assets to. So I'll give a quick overview. As Tony alluded to some of these bits before, you've got here the owner, the budget, goals, start date, all that stuff that we added in before. You can even click and see details. And if I zoom out, it should pull up on the side. There we go. So I'll give you a quick overview of those details too, if you want them. And you can also edit them from this sidebar as well. An old feature of campaigns was you weren't able to edit them, even the name you weren't able to edit in the past. Thankfully, they've changed that somewhat recently, which is great. Everybody was screaming for that. And then you'll see here below, you've got the performance, attribution, assets, and tasks. So performance speaks for itself. It'll give you, depending on what your range is, your last or first touch, your dates of yesterday, this week, last month, this year, whatever. It'll show you the results of said campaign all in a nutshell. So I'll show the overall sessions from all the assets attributed, the new contacts that were made from the first touch of those assets, the influence contacts as well. So those you might have already in your CRM who were sent an asset for this campaign and interacted with said asset. And then any closed deals that tied in at the end. So, someone who was a first touch on a campaign through an ad, and then a landing page and whatnot. And then they eventually said, yeah, I want to work with these guys, and you close a deal on them in your sales pipeline, they'll be added in there. And then you've got revenue attribution, which is a huge benefit. Like I said before, ROI and whatnot is something that a lot of people find quite elusive from marketing activity. So this particular revenue attribution set of data is super important. And it's why you should be tying in your HubSpot marketing hub activities with your sales hub activities as closely linked as possible. Even at the very beginning point of just using the sales pipeline can get you a lot more accurate data and dollars into your system. Deals with attribution revenue and also contacts with attribution revenue. So all of them have little eye icons. You can read into those a little bit more. I won't go into all of them today, but eventually then you'll start seeing once new contacts start being added in as efforts to your campaign, they'll start being listed below, which is pretty cool. So this is all at a glance. Now, the other things you can do here as well is you can actually start creating tracking URLs, creating tasks, comments, all from this little actions icon here. You can also manage access. So if you want certain people in the organization you work in to view it versus others not to, then you can also manage that access here if that's something important to you. Now, going at the other next tab, the attribution one here. So this is where you start actually adding in like all your attribution reporting. So when you start adding in assets, it'll actually start collating it into little reports that you can then export, send reports into dashboards. So you can look here, you can save this particular report and it's bespoke just to this campaign. If you save that report on its own, give it a name. I'll have a look here and see if I can do that for you here. Yeah, cool. So me just zoom out. So I can give it a name here and say like, you know, contacts for under the hood as an example. I don't want to add it to an existing dashboard, or I want to add it to an existing dashboard. If I add it to a new dashboard as well, I could go about creating a whole new dashboard for this campaign if I wanted to. If you've got an old existing dashboard, you know, we've got all these dashboards existing, we could add them too. But if you wanted to create a new one, you could as well. So I won't do that for this purpose of exercise, but this is really good then so that when you start as the marketing manager developing out results and whatnot, you can be putting these reports into dashboards and then sending said dashboards to the important stakeholders to review, as opposed to having to dive deep on the campaign tool every single time. So a really cool tool, really cool feature. You can obviously at the top there, you know, put them between the content create date, the deal create date, and even the revenue as well. So you can develop up all these different kinds of reports. I'll look at some examples a bit later on because it's hard to see that without data. And assets. So this is when you start adding in assets. And like I said before, this is mainly to do with the marketing hub. So, you know, ads, blogs, landing pages, etc. This is where you add them. You can also add them at the top here where it says add assets. And you know, HubSpot really wants you to add assets. So it adds CTAs pretty much everywhere. And then tasks. So again, tasks, highly underused particular set of tools within campaigns. You can set and create tasks for yourself to, you know, reminder to check under the hood results. You know, it could be weekly results as an example. I'll put that there. Okay. And then the type, if you want to, you know, is it a blog, email, landing page, etc. You know, who's it assigned to? I'll assign it to me. You know, put any notes I want to, and then set the date and time for me to check that. And then you save it, and then you'll get a notification to yourself when you've allocated that time to go and check. It speaks for itself. Rightio. And then now what we want to do is add assets. So take into account you've created your campaign, you know what the goals, the budget are, etc. Now you want to go and add in your assets. So you may or may not have already created assets. We can work both ways, and that's the great thing about HubSpot is that you can create the campaign first, and then as you're creating assets, add them later. But I'll show you as an example if you've already created them, and then I'll show you an example of adding them if you haven't already added them. So adding assets, you just click at the top there or wherever it says add assets, and then you can see at the top here, add campaigns, blogs, call to actions, a whole bunch of things. They just recently added forms, which is really cool. And then you can go in here and pick the certain assets that are all aligned with your overall campaign. So add campaign, maybe, you know, I'll pick this one, you know, I'll go blog and I'll pick this one and that one. You can basically go through all of them and select to your heart's content. The other thing to note as well is that you've got the search option here. So for any reason why you can't find a particular ad, you can search over key terms, you know, or social posts or landing pages or whatever asset you're searching for. Just select some key terms and then you'll find what you're looking for. Workflows as well, so any automations that tie in with your campaign, you can select some of those. I'm just going to select a whole bunch of random ones here just to show you an example. And I will delete this campaign afterwards so that people at Salter Stone aren't confused thinking, what is Gabe doing? We should rethink his access level to HubSpot. All right, cool. So I've just added a whole bunch. Yeah, I think that will do. And then I'll hit save when I'm happy with that. You can see here I'm adding 19 assets. I'll hit save. I'll take a second. And then, ta-da! You can see the ads campaigns added in there, the blogs, the call to actions, emails, and even gives you like a little preview of it too. So you can even view the email direct. So if you wanted to see what that email looked like, if you can't remember, you can click in and have a quick sneak preview of that. You've got forms, landing pages, social posts, all the stuff we selected there. Great. So you can see there, and you can even see the status, if it's in draft, if it's published, if it's scheduled, that kind of stuff. And any comments to it as well that people can add to it. You can even go, when you look at this, you can go, oh, actually that campaign didn't matter. You know, I actually want to remove that from the campaign. You can do that. And I'll make sure, yes, are you sure? Yes, 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 absolutely. The other points here is you can view performance individually of each asset too. You can view the details. You can even comment to it. So if you commented on it, it would add a comment into there. But I won't do that for the sake of not confusing people. But overall, that's what your campaign should start to look like and start being built out. I did mention, however, though, if you haven't built out assets like this and you're just in the process of doing that, create your campaign first. Highly recommend doing that, and you know, to forward think, and then go, okay, now I'm going to create a landing page. So here we've got the landing page tool. It's underneath HubSpot marketing landing pages. Say I'm creating a particular landing page. I'm just going to go to this example one here. And this is just one that we're creating for something else completely different, but I'm going to ignore the content on it because I want to show you here in the actual settings why it's important to note that while you're creating the content on that landing page and figuring it out and getting all nice and shiny and ready to launch, you can see here that you've got campaign. And that is exactly where you'll be able to find the under the hood test campaign that I can add it to. And that's how you do it retrospectively. And you can do this to every single asset that you create. You can do it to socials, you can do it to landing pages, you can do it to EDMs, what have you. You can go in retrospectively and add them in at a later stage if you want. You can also add in multiple ones too. So it depends on the level of HubSpot that you have. I think you have to have enterprise and above. Well, enterprise is the top, but at least enterprise to be able to put in multiple campaigns per asset. So just keep that as a little tidbit there. But I'm going to remove that because people are thinking that that is incorrect. Yes, please. Cool. So that was the example one that's of under the hood test campaign setup and all the attributing assets and whatnot that you can start utilizing. But now I'm going to show you an example one we had set up a while ago and show you sort of the results of that too. So this is one we set up for Hugs, which is a HubSpot user groups campaign. And the campaign, as you can see here, this is just like a mock-up one. It's not got 100% accurate data, so just take this with a grain of salt. But it does show sort of some data to work with in terms of the sessions we've had. As an overview here, the new contacts, 0 generated, but there was over nearly 1.5 K influence contacts within our CRM that got a touch point on these. And also some closed deals. So it looks like that some of those influenced CRM contacts, we actually closed 10 deals on, which is great. And I won't show the data in there, but if I clicked on that, you would see what would pop up would be the contacts and then the deal associated in the amount and whatnot. But I won't go into that detail because it's confidential. But we've got revenue attribution, the overall revenue, deals with revenue, contacts with attribution revenue too, and then the timelines and whatnot. If I have a look at assets again, you can see the actual attributed assets and their performance and whatnot. And then I can even go into attribution reporting and start to bring out reports and whatnot. So overall, this is kind of the semi-end result. I don't think campaigns ever necessarily end, but once you do get sort of in the groove of getting data into your campaigns and whatnot, this is sort of the direction you can start bringing out reports and start checking and seeing like who's interacting with what. This will give you some great direction too in terms of like the assets you see are working more. So if you find that ads are getting more data pull in and you're getting more contacts as a result of that as opposed to like social posts, then it could influence you as a marketing person. Oh, I need to do more ads and less social posts, or I need to really focus on my social posts and get those better and up to scratch. So look, that's campaigns in a nutshell. One thing I should probably note while I just stop screen sharing there is that campaigns overall are always lingering as a sort of a rough way of saying it or putting it. But as I showed you there before, Tony, with landing pages, with blogs, all those kinds of assets, retrospectively, you could always add them into campaigns and pull out data over time and start listening to your audience better. That's what the whole purpose of this is, right? And that's why I led in with the discussion about disconnected technology. This is to help alleviate that. And you, as the person helming the HubSpot campaigns tool, will have the power to be able to check that connection, check that disconnect, and then listen to your audience better.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking us through that. It's an interesting tool, isn't it, in there? Like, when you get into it. I noticed also, just as you finish there's a little area called revenue attribution, and I think we'll cover that off, at another stage, because revenue attribution is important. Like, how do you measure the financial effect of the campaign that you're doing? I think that's going to be important too. So we'll be looking at that and covering that off in future episodes. But we do have a couple of questions from our audience for you, Gabe. So
really?
First
for
question.
Me?
Yeah. Well, you presented on campaigns, and you are the guru.
I like to just frame it as fanatic. Maybe that's a bit more accurate to my title,
rather than frantic. What types of activities do you recommend setting up a campaign for?
Okay, that's a good question. All right, well, Yeah, there's always a staple one I recommend. So you as a business have what we call an always on campaign. I think that's a really, really important one to have at least at a foundation. And especially if you're just starting with HubSpot, it's like a really good campaign to build out. And what an always on campaign means is that, you know, you're always going to have your general nurtures, your general ads that just promote you as a business, right? It's a lot of them really just talk to you in terms of your brand, your messaging, and there's a lot of mention of your brand. You know, that brand X does this. You know, that is the kind of content I'm talking about when I say always on brand.
Yep.
And I think it's really important to have that always set up and always coming in, because it's your underlying campaign that kind of shows like how you're being voiced as a brand and how people are responding to your voice as a brand. So you talk a lot to brand voice and how important that is. That can really help.
I think so, and I think you're always on is right on the money there, because we live in a world that is always on, right? People could be shopping or looking at your brand any time of the day, any day of the week. So I think this idea of using it for an always on brand, because you're testing and measuring how people are seeing your brand any time of the day, any day of the week.
Yep, 100%. And then I would probably just add to that another key one that is always worthwhile doing, especially if they're quite large, is for events. So, you know, even this you could technically call an event under the hood. You know, that's why I showed you an example of creating a campaign for that. You know, if you're doing, say, a live event, especially, and you're wanting to promote it 3 months in advance, you're creating ads, landing pages, blogs, whatever you do to promote it, you know, creating a campaign based around an event is, you know, I would say hypercritical, you know, because there's such a huge cost involved with, especially in-person events. You have to book a venue, you know, all these costs of like getting people there and, you know, catering, whatever it might be, you know, showing the success of said events. So if you had 100 people sign up and 5, you know, end up being your revenue goal, you know, you get 5 new deals across the line, you know, what does that mean for your business? Did that break even for your event, you know, or did it go up and above? You know, that's a really cool one to do.
Yeah, cool. Some good examples there. Next question, can I associate assets or content with more than one campaign?
Yes, like I mentioned before, you can, but you have to have a certain level of HubSpot to do that. And happy to talk more to the particulars of that. You can get exceptions, I believe, but you have to sort of niggle around with the HubSpot guys to get that.
Sweeten the deal with HubSpot.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, you can, in short, but yeah, it's all dependent on your, I guess, subscription level of HubSpot.
Yeah, cool. All right, last question I've got here is, what's the difference between a first touch and a last touch?
Yeah, sure. So last touch would be...
is there ever a last touch?
I guess not, you know, you could argue that there isn't, but it would be the last touch that the contact had with the asset versus the first touch being the first time they ever interacted with a particular asset. So and a good example is like a first touch might be an ad from a Google search they clicked on. So that's the first touch. And the last touch would be the last thing that they touched on before, you know, they started coming into your pipeline. So yeah, I mean, and to Tony's point though, you know, touch points never really end, you know. We're always being touchy-feely with with campaigns. So yeah.
Well, that's cool. Well, thanks for joining us today, and Gabe, thanks for taking us through the campaign tools of HubSpot, which was very interesting. But you kind of get an idea of what this series of episodes is going to be. We're going to be doing this committed to you every single week at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time, which I don't know what's going to change when we go to daylight saving, but anyway, we'll keep you posted. If you do end up missing one, we'll send you a link to the video so you can kind of check that out as well. So just to kind of finish off, that was what we were looking at in terms of this particular week, which was of course campaign tools. But more importantly, what are we going to talk about next week? Well, it's going to be single customer view.
Oh my gosh.
Which kind of leads on from what you were just talking about, because if we're going to listen and we're going to see the data, wouldn't it be great if we could see a 360-degree view of what our customers and prospects are doing?
Or a 720 degree, which is going around the content twice.
Let's start with 360. That's mind-boggling for me. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you same time, same channel,